Hi, welcome to the Intuitive Leader podcast. My name is Maurice Jenkens. I'm the host and the creator of this show. We explore what intuition is and how to best use it professionally at work. My guests are leading scientists sharing their research on intuitive intelligence, as well as founders and CEOs sharing their stories, how they use intuition on a daily basis. Some of the questions that we will take up are: what is intuition? How do you know it's your intuition? Why should you use intuition in the first place? And what happens if you move against your gut, against your intuition? I offer founders and CEOs a safe space for inner transformation and personal growth so they can experience self-expression without being judged or abandoned. This to find new ways to grow their company with connection and joy, basically to find true fulfillment. This podcast is part of a wider ecosystem. It's also connected to a free community for everybody to join and a membership-based community for founders and CEOs that speak the same language. There's also a masterclass called Decoding Intuition, but more on that later on. This podcast is all about my guests. It's an interview-style podcast, and I genuinely want to hear what my guests have to say about intuition, how they use it, and what it is according to them. So I'll ask questions and I will listen. But before I do that, I do think it's fair to give you a chance to get a better sense of who I am and what my take is on intuition. Just to get the basics out of the way, it's 2025, I've turned 50. I'm born in the Netherlands, I'm living in Sweden, and I'm having digital clients from literally all over the place. I've been working with sales and leadership for all my career since 2001, and I'm also a speaker on topic of intuitive intelligence, psychological safety, a culture of trust, and reading the room for salespeople. I believe I have more than 1,000 hours at the time, still counting, of experience in training, educating, speaking on topics of emotional intelligence in sales, leadership, intuition, and how to communicate with others. Basically, I'm creating a culture of trust. As recent as yesterday, I got the question, Maurice, why do you do this? Why do you work with intuition? And the easy answer, the short answer is because this is what I am. This is me. I am the intuitive leader. Already as a young child, I was aware that I was highly intuitive. That intuitive aspect of life got heavily suppressed, though, during my time when I grew up, to the point that I almost forgot about it, or my true identity, if you like. By the time I was a young adult, I had fallen in line, if you like, with the normal kind of lifestyle that was expected from a person like me. A 9-to-5 job, the hunt for an office career on the back of a highly rational university schooling in international politics. I was drilled in thinking logically, writing essays, sequential, rational thought processes, and I had a gift for research and writing and debating theories. Thanks to this part of my life, I got to fine-tune my rational mind, my logical thinking. During the years, I may have forgotten or pushed back about my intuitive mind, if you like. That was at my own peril. I was constantly not satisfied. I was constantly missing something. I was walking around with the feeling something was off. This nagging feeling of anxiety in me that I wasn't really doing what I wanted in life. Then, age 28, still very young, I crashed. At the time, it was an absolute, total catastrophe. I was severely burned up, and the life I had planned, or I had sort of, in mind for myself, I saw it sliding away. Now, 22 years later, I can see that was the best thing that could happen to me. I didn't see it at the time, but I do see it now. It was the best thing that could happen to me, because when I crashed, I was forced to look at myself, to listen in, and to ask myself the tough questions. How could this happen? Who am I? What do I really enjoy in life? What is it that I really want in life? What are my dreams? Not the ones that were sort of imprinted on me thanks to a certain amount of environment of how you've been raised, which is highly recognizable for most sort of office professionals that I meet. Well, what is truly meaningful for me? What does it mean, fulfillment? I didn't have the answers at the time. I was dwelling in misery. I can honestly say that. If you're severely burned out, and if you're severely burned out right now, if you listen to this, then let me know there is hope. It will get better, even though I myself at the time had zero hope it would get better. But it did force me to look inside. It did force me to check in with myself on a daily basis. What's good for me? What's not good for me? What do I want? What does my body want? What does my mind want? What does my heart want? What's my inner knowing telling me what I should do next in life without burning myself out again? I sort of had this constant fear of falling back into this black hole of misery again. But slowly and gradually, over the course of about 22 years, the answers started to come. Each time I asked a question, my inner knowing started to answer. The act of daily asking myself these questions and allowed my gut, allowed my inner knowing to actually answer and then to act on it step by step, gradually, a little bit more for every year. I got stronger. I got to hone my inner knowing, got to hone my intuition, and to actually evolve or produce the capacity to digging it up within myself, not just listening to it, but also translating it, deciphering it, decoding it, interpreting it, and then create action on that, meaningful action. These years in my life have sharpened my intuitive intelligence. The first 25 or so years sharpened my rational thinking, and 22 years after that sharpened my intuitive intelligence. Also, during those years, I've done countless amounts of courses, if you like, self-leadership, self-help, sales trainings. I got certified in a psychological model for personal growth. And there are a lot of other things to work with myself, if you like. Cleaning the basement, erasing false narratives of myself. Basically stripping away everything, every layer that was sort of hiding my true identity in terms of distorting what my gut was telling me. If your intuition is sort of a little voice in you, you need to hear it. It needs to be heard. But if it gets distorted by lots of other sounds, or if it gets pressed back by layers of imprinted cultural behavior, you need to strip that away. At least it works better if you do. During those years, I also read a ton of books on intuition and like-minded topics, ranging from the scientific to the spiritual. But I never really found the answers I was looking for. Not in courses, not in books. Because ultimately, the answers have been, always were, and still are within me. And today, I can see that very clearly, that what I wanted to do in life, what was giving me true meaningfulness or true fulfillment, what felt really meaningful to me, has always been guiding me to the point where I am today. I've always been drawn to doing this kind of work already when I was a child, although I didn't understand it when I was a young child. But I've always been drawn to these kind of things. And the something is off feeling is now gone. So finally, after all these years, I'm 50 today. Finally, my search is over. And I want you to let that sink in for a second. You have no idea how good that feels. I've been doing a lot of fun stuff in my life. Professionally, successfully, I could have stopped and just enjoyed it and had a different kind of career, but it wouldn't have felt as it does today. I don't search anymore for something else. I know what I'm here for to do. There's a very big difference to settle with something that is okay, and then you sort of suppress or distract yourself from the something is off, the something is missing feeling, to an inner calmness, an inner peace, an inner knowing that this is right. Not just right from now, but right from now on. And what I'm here for to do is to help others to come to that same point in life. And you don't need 22 years for it. You can actually fast track it. That's why there is something called Decoding Intuition. That's why there's a course called The Culture of Trust, Psychological Safety, and that's why we have this community. I know many leaders are still searching for these kind of answers, despite having a very successful business. So I help leaders connect to their intuition, the inner knowing, the GPS system, the inner guidance system, the GPS, the radar, the Northern Star, whatever you want to call it. I help leaders and CEOs and founders of companies to connect to that inner knowing and then to have the capacity to translate that into meaningful action, to find their highest purpose. And think of the power here. Purpose-led businesses change the world for good. Now, I could share with you a lot of stories that probably are not so nice and are not so happy. They wouldn't energize you. They were rough. I haven't always had an easy patch, if you like. But I can honestly say that was a good thing. I can look back on my life and I can see that all my life, especially when I was younger, has been one big training camp to do for what I'm doing today. And I can honestly say that every single word that I'm saying, or every single piece of method, of exercise, everything that I do or offer in either decoding intuition or in the community or in webinars or speaking sessions or in coaching sessions or whatever you want to call it, every single aspect of it, besides that it is inspired or based on science, it is self-applied, self-experienced, and to a large extent, self-invented. It's also tested and trialed. And by now, it's evidence-based. It works. So, having said that, I genuinely am interested in hearing what my guests have to say about intuition, what it is according to them, and how they use it, and what their stories are behind it. That doesn't mean, though, that I necessarily always agree with them. But it doesn't matter, because the most important thing that you need to keep in mind when we work with intuitive intelligence is to have an open mind. There is so much about intuition that we don't know yet, that we need to be humble for the enormous amount of data, both scientific as well as from a practitioner point of view, that if we would know it, it could change the whole approach of us towards intuition. And the more I work with it, the more I realize how little we know about it. And I do understand why people see it as magical, and there certainly is a mysterious aspect to it. But to me, intuition is perfectly explainable. I don't necessarily believe in magic. I believe it is explainable, every single detail of it. That's also what I do in Decoding Intuition. I break it down to small steps to how you do intuition, how you can catch it. Just like in the Matrix, you slow down time and we look in slow motion what's happening. Science has come a very long way of explaining a lot of stuff, but not all the way. And where science ends, belief systems kick in. This is normal. This is how it has always been. This is maybe also how it should be. Science cannot be completely where reality is. It needs to be behind a decade or two at least, because that's how science works. It needs to verify theories or demystify theories. But as soon as people say, now I've figured it out, I know what intuition is, this is the final definition of intuition, their minds are closed. To me, that is highly unscientific. For me, a much better approach would be to have a well-founded, well-grounded working theory of intuition and then start exploring from there. So, my definition of intuition is a sense of inner knowing, or simply knowing. Of course, there's a difference between knowledge, which is learned, and knowing, which is in a sense of what's true. For example, the capital of France is Paris. That's knowledge. We have learned that at school. If you know you love your child, I don't mean the feeling of love. I mean the underlying feeling of knowing. It is true to you that you love your child. There's no doubt. This is a very strong marker of intuition, of inner knowing. The moment something feels very true to you, it's your intuition telling you a yes. The opposite could be true as well, where knowledge and intuition collide, are in conflict with each other. It's a very famous quote from Warren Buffett. He's known to do very deep due diligence on when to invest in a certain fund. He's quoted on saying that, and I've saved that quote, even when a fund looks completely good, even when all lights are on green and we should invest in this fund, if my gut says no, walk away. Warren Buffett uses, obviously, his rational mind, but he also listens in. Is this the right decision? Yes or no? That's intuition. I wanted to say a few words about history and evolution of intuition. Very briefly though. Intuition is a very old concept, and it has been a concept already long before the Western societies made their entry on this planet. So pre-modern societies had complete concepts about intuition, not just words, but concepts. They had a deep understanding of what intuitive intelligence was about. So you have to ask yourself, why would literally every society on this earth, of all cultures, of all times, have a concept about intuition long before we had written languages, press, newsletters, or internet? The ancients were highly intuitive, and as Aristotle famously put it, it is the intuitive mind which gives access to the principles of proof. All true knowledge comes from the intuitive mind. Their starting point was, let's start with intuitive intelligence to put us into the right direction, and then let our rational mind chop it to pieces on how we're actually going to do that. It was a clear hierarchy where the intuitive mind steered the rational mind. Of course, with the entry of the modern Western cultures, that hierarchy got completely flipped around. The rational mind became the dominant one, and the intuitive mind became, well, highly distrusted, even to the point where its very existence got doubted. Yet, the great ones on earth kept giving testimonials about how intuition not just helped them, but had been crucial for their breakthroughs in their careers. These were voices that were simply too big to be ignored, like Einstein and Jonas Salk, the inventor of the polio vaccine. So after the Second World War, we saw a uptick, if you like, in science and research on topic of intuition. And CEOs and, let's say, the management literature community, they wanted to grasp this topic because they were already using their gut. They were already highly aware of going with their gut. Going with the gut became sort of a cool thing to do for, let's say, American cowboy-style CEOs. But that gave new problems, such as unconscious bias in forms of overly self-confidence or prejudices against others hidden behind the words, "my gut tells me." So since the works of people like Daniel Kahneman, who got rewarded the Nobel Prize 2008 for his work on this topic, the evolution of intuition came one step further. From it doesn't exist or it's only harmful to actually it does exist, and not only that, there's also a rightful place in the decision-making process. In the case of Daniel Kahneman, at the end of a rational thought process. Since then, more research, lab tests, science has been done on other type or other sources of intuition, like social intuition, moral intuition, creative intuition, that's the intuitive mind, intuition of timing, intuitive mind, but also body intuition. And famously, we also know about the vagus nerve as well as the second brain and the little brain. But the body of evidence or the body of scientific works is growing by the day. So where are we today with intuition? Sometimes there's a furious debate as whether we should only use logic or only intuition, and what intuition really is, and if it's only experience or if it's something else. Well, there's a very interesting new frontier within the research community on this topic. It's about interoceptive work. is the capacity to recognize what's happening inside your body. This is a sense. It's a real sense. It's sense number 6. I don't mean the sixth sense from that movie. I mean, it's literally number 6. And it's the capacity to be receptive and register what's happening inside your body. Signals, hunches, feelings. It's very much related to emotional intelligence as well. So for 50 years ago, intuition hardly existed. Now we know it does. For 20 years ago, intuition was experience-based only. Now we know there is more to it. For 10 years ago, there was hardly any other user case for intuition than making decisions, like, decision-making processes in management literature. Now we have lots of other user cases, such as reading the room, creating trust, creativity, and very important, navigating uncertainties and unknowns where there is no data or not enough data or bad quality data available. And now today, obviously, with the rise of AI, we have another and maybe even more important question to ask ourselves. Who are we as humans? What defines us? If AI is so much better in rational thinking, in processing data, what's left for us? And it brings us back to the question that I started with. What is meaningful? What is truly meaningful for us? And what is true purpose? To navigate these kind of questions in the world we are living in, rapidly changing, highly uncertain, highly unsafe, we need to ask ourselves and our inner knowing, our GPS system, what's the right way forward? And I personally feel that's what we're heading for in terms of intuition. Science is lagging a little bit behind on that one, but that is how it should be. It can't be where reality is, as explained earlier. It needs time. So my take on intuition is that it is an inner sense of knowing. And does it then really matter what the source is, where it comes from? Does it knowledge or divine entity? Ultimately, it boils down to you making sense of it all. Ultimately, you can detect intuition in you. It has a specific signature to it. And if you're open to it, I can guide you to yours. And if your intuition guides you well, if it guides you to true fulfillment, if it helps you read the room, if it navigates difficult situations in life, if it helps you create safety for others and a culture of trust, does it then really matter where it comes from? If you've been able to master your intuition, your inner knowing on the inside, if you like, does it then truly matter where it comes from? Of course, I want to know more about where it comes from. Of course, I want to dig deeper and learn more about that. But isn't it fantastically practical to actually be able to use it, to put it to good use? So what's my approach when I work with intuition? I calibrate logic and intuition constantly. I merge them. You could say I'm a bridge. I'm a bridge between the rational and the intuitive. I bridge rational, sequential thought processes, as well as tapping into intuitive intelligence. I can speak both of these languages because I am both. But I don't believe in logic only, and I don't believe in intuition only. I believe in both. I believe in combining the two. I believe that's where the magic happens. If you integrate your logical thinking and your intuitive mind, if you like. I have one foot in science and one foot in being a practitioner and allowing intuitive intelligence to come forth. I work with proactive intuition. If you think of it, there are two kinds of intuition. The one that you get sort of aware of as it has happened afterwards, I call that, by a lack of better wording, reactive intuition. And there's proactive intuition, where we proactively seek it out. We want to tap into our intuitive intelligence. And that's the one that I train. That's the one that Decoding Intuition focuses on. And as a bonus, you'll be even more aware of when intuition has happened in the past reactively. But I do believe that we need to use logic as well. And That is symbolized by my company logo. It has two, brain halves, if you like. One half is blue, logic. One half is orange, intuitive. We have two machines up here, right? Number one, number two. Why not use both? Right? And also for the question, when we should use intuition. Should we use it at the beginning of a process, at the end of a process, somewhere in the middle? Why limit yourself? Why not use all the time? And this is exactly what I do. I check in with my gut, with my intuition, as often as I check in with KPIs and numbers at work. I use them both, and I use them both all the time. For me, intuition is not the same thing as being impulsive. Intuition is a clue to stop and to look into something. For me, intuition is connected to consider, to reflect, to look inside, and to gather more data, and to even gather more data on the outside, and in more sales data or more leadership data or more decision data. For me, intuition is something that informs me. It's not equal to acting blindly, but rather one ingredient in moving forward in the decision process, for example. And if something feels off, like Warren Buffett, if something feels off, stop, investigate, or let it go. And if you move against your intuition, it will be at your own predicament. Unconscious bias is not the enemy of intuition. The problem with unconscious bias is not bias. We all have bias. We always will have bias. It's part of our ego structure. We won't get rid of it. The problem with unconscious bias is that it is unconscious. And the whole point of working with intuition to stop, pause, dig deeper, look inside, ask yourself, reflect, what's this, what's wrong, what's going on, what's right, is to create a higher awareness in the moment of making a decision, for example, or when you're reading the room. It's this higher awareness that brings data points that may be forgotten otherwise, or it brings elements of your blind spots, that you unconsciously act out. It brings that into your awareness. Once you have it into your awareness, which is a heightened state of awareness, then you can consciously do something about it. In that sense, the way I work with intuition, acting from a higher moment of awareness to consciously act, is actually the medicine against unconscious bias. And one crucial element in this, I said it before, but it's really crucial, is to understand how your intuition works for you, your inner resonance signature. Once we have established that, we can sort of decipher it and differentiate it from other elements or other sensations like fear, fantasy, wishful thinking, scripts that are running in unconscious mode. So ultimately, working with intuition is about getting to know yourself better. So I quite often get the question, can you train intuition? The short answer is yes, but there is a nuanciation to it, if you like. So what I help you with is to first identify what your intuition really is, your signature. Then to help you catch it, proactively seek it out and catch it. And also how to interpret it, and then to recognize and minimize bias. And then finally, trust it enough to translate that into meaningful action. So in essence, I train your access and understanding of your inner knowing. Call it self-exploring, call it self-understanding, self-expression, self-awareness, self-knowledge, call it training. The end result is that you will be able to harvest your power of intuition. And then you apply that to whatever you want to. It's a de-biased version of radical self-trust. And those words are coming from one of my clients. Yes, you have to practice that a little. And yes, that is trainable. Finally, a few last words about the ecosystem that I've created. Podcast, community, Decoding Intuition. It's all an invitation to you, founder, CEO, or other leader, to join this journey to find true fulfillment and to meet your peers that speak your language. You will find here a combination of rational thought, and intuitive intelligence, business and connection, the CEO and the human. In terms of the decoding course, Decoding Intuition, it's an online course consisting of short preparing videos and preparing exercises ahead of any sessions, as well as applied skills, applied techniques for intuitive intelligence during our sessions. We work in small cohorts and with peers only. Our membership-based community builds further on this, and to be able to be part of our community, the membership-based community, you have to either have gone through the Decoding Intuition course or equivalent somewhere else, or have had a proven track record of intuitive leadership. If you want to know more about the online course, Decoding Intuition, or our membership-based community, please email me directly at maurice@intuitiveleader.net and email here below in the text. You can also find me on LinkedIn. Simply type in Maurice Jenkens, link below. And also, if you want to get a heads up with our next podcast release or our next free webinar, please go to intuitiveleader.net/podcast, link below. Finally, if you as a founder, CEO, feel like this podcast resonates with you and you want your story to get out, then please ping me as well. This podcast is not a particularly salesy one. There's no advertisement, no hard push for call to actions. But obviously, if you feel this resonates with you, please hit the like, subscribe, share button, comment, help me spread the word. Obviously, I'll be very grateful for that. So with all of this said, I have an enormous amount of respect for my guests, and it has been an enormous honor, a true honor to have them on. Each single one of my guests have taught me something new and have inspired me, basically, to take one step further and to go from podcast to community, etc. The coming first 10 episodes will focus on the basics. What is intuition? Why use it? And my guests share their real life stories. Now, let's get started.